All right, Krystal, what's on your radar?
Well, at a grassroots fundraiser last night in D.C., Bernie Sanders had a message for our fragile ruling class. Take a listen.
It is telling the 1% and the corporate elites, who, by the way, in case you haven't noticed it, are getting very nervous lately. The billionaires are actually getting very emotional. They're breaking down. They want to take our money. Oh, my God. How terrible can these people be? We only have $150 billion. They want us to pay taxes. What is this country coming to?
His utter mockery and F your feelings attitude towards billionaires is just sublime. And of course, perfectly timed, given that the ruling class is truly in full meltdown panic mode. First off, Tom Steyer jumped into the presidential race after saying that he wouldn't, and when pressed for a justification by Politico, he said it's because no one was prioritizing climate change. This, of course, in spite of the fact that he still has investments in oil and gas companies, not to mention an undying faith in the consumerist capitalistic system that led the planet to the point of collapse in the first place. Then, after numerous reports of Manhattan donor hand-wringing, Michael Bloomberg decided to get in on the action. He's now officially on the ballot in at least a few states, and his advisor, Howard Wolfson, says that he will skip the early primary states to focus on Super Tuesday. The billionaire former NYC mayor would enter the primary race with a worst-in-field negative 31 favorability rating among Iowa voters. Next up, Deval Patrick, who brings quite a record of whitewashing corporate malfeasance to the table. He's got a classic up-by-the-bootstrap story that ends with him as VP at Coca-Cola, VP at Texaco, and managing director at Bain Capital. But maybe his most revealing resume item was his time with AmeriQuest, which was written about by Zach Carter over at the Huffington Post. AmeriQuest was the largest subprime lender in the housing crisis, described as the, quote, worst bottom feeder of them all. Deval Patrick sat on their board. Patrick has called Biden and others to indicate he may jump in the race. I guess the donor class loves Pete, but can see the polling that has him near 0% with black voters. I personally see no reason to believe that a similar corporatist background wrapped in a different identity will achieve significantly better results, but sure, whatever. As if that wasn't enough, though, now Obama AG Eric Holder is taking another look at the race. He's reportedly talking to strategists about a late entry, and of course, the matriarch of the Democratic establishment herself, Hillary Rodham Clinton, just told the BBC that she's, quote, under enormous pressure from many, many, many people to think about running. So why now? Why has full freakout set in over the past couple weeks? After all, as Estuardo Rodriguez pointed out on our show yesterday, he was just with Governor Patrick 2 weeks ago, and at that time he was completely clear and firm in his commitment to not run. Very interesting. Of course, all of these people are claiming that they're taking another look at the race because they're just simple patriots concerned that the field isn't strong enough to defeat Trump. Here's Bloomberg's guy, Howard Wolfson, again, quote, we now need to finish the job and ensure that Trump is defeated. But Mike is increasingly concerned that the current field of candidates is not well positioned to do that. By the way, I'm not sure I've ever seen anyone as consistently ratioed as that guy is. But anyway, don't believe the bullshit that this is all about their patriotic duty to defeat Trump. They aren't afraid Democrats will lose to Trump. They are terrified that a real progressive may actually win. After all, it's hard not to notice that the sudden ruling class meltdown and rush to enter the race has occurred during a time period when Bernie Sanders has seen a surge in endorsements, crowd sizes, and polling numbers. He had the best debate of his career, won the endorsement of AOC, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, and now the National Nurses Union. He hosted the biggest rally of the cycle in New York and just garnered the largest rally crowd in Iowa so far. That new momentum is also showing up in the polls, where he's gained 5 points in Iowa, 7 points among college students. A recent CNN poll had him leading in New Hampshire, and polls consistently show his supporters to be the most enthusiastic and the most committed. Warren and Biden, meanwhile, have both slumped during this time period, and it's hard to imagine that the elite freakout is in reaction to Mayor Pete's media fuel rides. Now, the great irony, of course, is that nothing could be better for Bernie than a bunch of billionaire and establishment types jumping into the race to siphon off votes from his more elite-friendly rivals. But, you know, While the ruling class might be good at foreclosing on middle-class homes, giving closed-door speeches to Goldman Sachs, and profiting off of climate catastrophe, they're not always so great at figuring out this whole politics thing. Their ego and undying faith in their own brilliance will never allow them to see what is so patently obvious to all of us. No one outside of your tiny enclave wants you, and your candidacies will only enable and inflame the exact populist movement you are so desperate to quash. Prepare to see many more billionaire tears in the days to come. And Sagar, I think that's really the bind that they're in. They see the rise of progressives in the ticket, and they hate it. But the more that they speak out against it, the more that it helps those progressives, and getting in the race would be the best thing for them that could possibly happen.
Same thing happened under Trump. It's so funny because it was the billionaires and the donor class freaked out. They started backing all these dark money groups against him. Then they started, it was this constant thing all the way up into the convention. But the good news I have for everybody is that, don't worry, they'll all bow. At the end of the day, if Bernie or Elizabeth Warren wins the nomination, they're going to try everything humanly possible to get inside that inner circle, to get into somebody's ear. And, it's just funny because they'll stop at nothing. This is an existential threat to a lot of their ways of doing business, the way that they operate, both as businessmen and then the enormous fortunes that they've amassed. And in a way, they're right to do it. But yeah, they don't understand public opinion. In a way, so much of their success is derived from basically leeching value from the rest of the public. So I don't know if you can become a billionaire if you aren't capable of sympathizing with the public.
Yeah, the best thing they could do in terms of their interests is just be quiet, but they can't possibly do that and just leave it to the whims of the voters. But I don't know that they would bow. If Bernie Sanders was the nominee, I don't know that they would, because it strikes so directly at the core of their class interests. And you see this already. You see Donnie Deutsch and you see others who say Trump is an existential threat, but oh my God, if they're going to raise my taxes, then maybe I'm going to have to vote for him.
It's possible. So they probably would go into overdrive trying to defeat Bernie. But I'm saying if he became president, if he really amassed power, or if it looked like things were going to get close, they always find a way. This is what they're best at, right? They have established power bases in these institutions for a long time. This is why it's important that you elect and you vote for somebody who you truly think cannot be bought off at those most critical times, because that's when they start calling the most.
Well, Bernie did get one contribution from a billionaire, a woman,
really?
And he sent it back. Yeah, and she was sort of like,
That's classic.
I don't know about that, but I guess I'm happy that he's true to his brand. So I think you're going to have a hard time buying him off, billionaires, if he is in office, which is exactly why they're panicking.
Right.
Next up on Rising, public impeachment testimony begins today.
And once again, we're asking the question, will the proceedings have the impact that Democrats are hoping for? Our conversation with the journalist Chris Hedges when Rising continues.